Agency, regular meeting, September 25th, 2019, 6:40 PM. Madam Roll Call?
Commissioner Lawson? Commissioner Lanier? Here. Commissioner McCoy?
Here.
Vice Chair Botel?
Here.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Here.
Also present, Scott Evans, Interim Executive Director, Michael Hagewood, General Counsel, and Mayor Felder.
Yeah, I think they need your microphone on. All right, we'll have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Lawson. Forgot he's not here. Oh, here he is. Welcome. I knew you were coming.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any person who would like to speak on an agenda item, please fill out a blue public comment card located in the back of the council chambers and give it to the staff prior to the item being taken up by the CRA Board of Commissioners for discussion. Members of the public shall be given a total of 3 minutes to speak on all items listed on the consent agenda. Members of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak on each regular agenda item. In no event will anyone be allowed to submit a comment card and speak on an agenda item after the resolution is read or item considered. Are there any additions or deletions?
No, Madam Chair.
Disclosure by commission and staff. Have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Lawson?
Here. Yes.
Commissioner Lanier?
Just say yes.
Oh.
Who voted?
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Do we have any public comment cards for consent?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. Can we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier?
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Regular business, item number 4.
Board approval authorizing a request for proposals for grant writing continuing services.
Good evening. Anita Jenkins, our Director of Neighborhood Services, will present this item.
Good evening.
Good afternoon, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. We're before you tonight to ask for authority to issue a request for proposals for grant writing continuing services. At the current time, the agency does not have a current agreement with a grant writing consultant. And in your backup item, we included the proposed request for proposals. We would issue the RFP and solicit grant writing firms to respond. And of course, the selection will come back to you for approval.
Do we
If
have
there are any comments?
any public comment cards for this item?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, comments from the board?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I would love to see that the city can piggyback off of this grant writing program, see if we can adopt what they're doing and possibly allow for this to be implemented with the city as well as the CRA. So what options we would have with piggybacking on that.
All right, anyone else? Madam Clerk? Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Oh, yeah, so,
Motion to allow the staff to put out the RFP.
Second.
all right, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier? Yes. Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes,
Motion carries.
Thank you.
thank you. Item number 5?
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency adopting the City of Riviera Beach Procurement Code, adopting certain additional definitions and procurement provisions to the City of Riviera Beach Procurement Code, providing an effective date.
All right, we have a motion.
So moved.
All right, Mr. Manager,
Um,
or Executive Director. We've had too
Certainly.
many meetings, obviously, already.
This item is in response to the Florida legislature made an amendment to the state statutes in this recent year, and part of that change was that they required all CRAs in Florida to follow procurement code as adopted by the city that they're in. And I think the basis for this legislation came from that a lot of cities didn't, rather CRAs didn't have a specific well-defined procurement code. In this case, the CRA has a very well-defined one, but in order to go ahead and comply with our new statutes, we're proposing tonight that you adopt this change, and we will go ahead and continue to follow the city's procurement code from this point further, and any changes you make to that would, of course, apply to the work that the CRA does.
Any public comment cards?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, comments from the board? Go ahead.
So, the procurement policy that you have, there is no changes between the two? It's just exactly the same, or is there any additional things you added or anything like that?
Our existing code is well-defined. It has a lot of steps for procurement. They're all very similar to the cities. It isn't a dramatic change from our current code, but it's just slight changes to the policies. And we would follow exactly the city's code. The only change would be that where it references the city manager, we would reference the executive director of the CRA, it's just so that we could implement it.
Excuse me, there's one specific difference between the city's code and the CRA statute because of a requirement in the statute itself as far as disposing of property. There's a well-defined procedure that the CRA has to follow that does not apply to the city. So we've added that provision to code as we're adopting it for the city.
And that code is already in our policies and procedures, so we won't delete that portion.
Well, not that we won't delete it, but we will adopt it into the city's code that we adopted.
All right, anyone else? All right, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier?
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item number 6.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency approving the annual budget for the agency for fiscal year 2019-20, attached hereto and incorporated as Exhibit A, authorizing its transmittal to the City of Riviera Beach for certification in accordance with the law, providing an effective date and other purposes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mr. Evans?
Good evening, Board. Tonight before you is a budget for our 2019-2020 budget year. This is our 4th budget meeting, so this resolution will approve the budget that we've been developing through our various workshops. The revenue for this coming year is approximately $8.73 million. This comes from the City of Riviera Beach and Palm Beach County, and these dollars must be approved in accordance with state statutes within the Community Redevelopment Board for items that are in both our CRA plan, which is approved by both the CRA Board and the City Council. Our administrative budget for this year remains very similar to last year, which we were able to keep it at $1.28 million. This portion of the budget includes our professional services, marketing, our legal, our grants writing, money to provide our grants writing professional, along with maintenance of our CRA properties. It includes our office space, our IT services, utilities, board travel, and a parking lot lease on Singer Island that we continue to maintain to provide public parking. For our 2020 programs for this year, this includes a new round for our commercial grant incentive program. We would like to continue our homeowner grant incentives. The commercial grant incentive provides up to $40,000 in funding to make facade improvements and property improvements to our commercial properties that are in the CRA. And the homeowner improvement provides up to $20,000 for homeowners to make improvements within our neighborhoods. We would also propose to continue our 3rd round of our award-winning mural program. For this year's round, we're proposing a new competition. We would like to try and attract some new artists, and some local residents have expressed a desire to try and compete to get the award to implement our new murals. So the 3rd round, we would propose to have a competition. And additionally, in some of our workshops, we got a lot of feedback that we'd like to see some new 3D type murals that have been popular, especially amongst trying to create destination, where people stop and take a picture, and then they use those to post on social media, which of course helps promote our locations. And we'd like to do this both at Marina Village and also at the Ocean Walk property. So for our third round, we'd like to have a competition and then bring those results to you for approval. We would also like to include over $2 million in this budget to invest in workforce housing throughout the CRA. And this money would be utilized in strategic partnerships, both with the county, the city, some potentially with the Housing Authority, and also working with the Riviera Beach CDC. Our first-time home buyer and workforce program will provide down payment assistance and seek to combine our vacant and derelict properties within our neighborhoods with new construction, rehabilitated homes, and to provide affordable homes for our home buyer pipeline, which is a monthly meeting. We meet once a month to try and develop a pre-approved list of residents whose both credit has been repaired or is ready for them to proceed with a new home. And additionally, it also helps get them pre-qualified with banks so that when housing opportunities do come available, that we have residents who are ready to take advantage of that. Our new Neighborhood Reclaim Initiative will also seek to acquire new properties and provide new housing choices for our residents. And this program will work with homeowners to deal with code enforcement issues. We provide house painting and small property renovations through our Fix Up program. We'd like to complete 5 property renovations and 25 combined home improvements, beautifying some of the homes in our neighborhoods, and providing some landscaping improvements and other items to try and address some of the code enforcement issues that affect some of our neighborhoods. We would also are embarking upon a major update to our CRA plan this year, which we're very excited about. It's an exciting time for the city. The CRA board and the city council have approved a contract that would direct us to work with Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council to conduct stakeholder meetings, public workshops, and create an updated plan that supports the new City 2030 vision. And I think this is ideally timed to position the city to assist and promote a coordinated citywide effort to create a new development environment throughout the city and attract and achieve new economic development under the new city managers initiatives and working towards 2030 goals that are for the entire city. Additionally, this year we'd like to try and implement a new signage grant program. This would include a themed design for the various different areas of the city, and it would include a new grant program with a couple of targeted areas that we'd start with to try and improve our commercial corridors and have a themed look that would try and give a more beautification to our local businesses as we try and replace the signage and improve the overall aesthetics of our corridors. As a part of the CRA plan update, we would also like to update the vision for Broadway and the Blue Heron Corridor. And by updating this vision, this will allow us to make recommendations to implement new land use and zoning recommendations, which would help stimulate and attract future redevelopment. By adopting a vision, then we can also match that with a new large-scale grant program that would be based on assessing the future tax revenue of the new projects we'd like to bring to the city that match the new vision, and then providing that as an infrastructure grant to help stimulate and attract those types of developments. We're also proposing in this budget to continue our entrepreneur small business training program. Our Sunday Tiki Market, which is designed to promote the marina as a destination and continue support for our Neighborhood Watch and our Business Watch meetings. Above is our 2600 Broadway project rendering. We've tentatively labeled it the Blue Heron Business Center, and the goal for this project is to take a long-time vacant building and transform it into an active commercial hub, commercial center for the city. The private development market has tried several times to turn the site into a gas station, to a dollar store, to a fast food restaurant, none of which would be very high quality development to bring to the city, especially this is the busiest intersection in the city. And the redevelopment of our downtown commercial corridor is of course very critical to moving the city forward and creating new job opportunities. and reversing the commercial degradation that has impacted the Broadway corridor specifically. This would be a marquee building. Marquee buildings in key locations and iconic public buildings really can give us a place a sense of identity. And we feel that if by improving this property, we'll attract new development on the surrounding properties. And at this property, we would like to create a downtown cafe, central business hub for the community, provide revenue from creating a co-working space on the second floor that provides low-cost and flexible offices for rent for our local entrepreneurs and our small businesses. And we'd also utilize the co-working space to create a small business accelerator that helps grow new and start-up businesses within the city. And then in a small corner of this building, we would also relocate the CRA's office, and on the ground floor, a portion of the ground floor, the clean and safe offices. Additional projects that would be implemented and constructed this year includes our new City of Riviera Beach water fountain and beautification corner park, and that's designed to really set a new look and feel for Broadway and Blue Heron, and set a new standard for the type of development quality that we want to attract. The Marina Village improvements includes a new flagpole and a community plaque commemorating our Gold Star families. It also reserves over $2 million in capital for our Phase 2 development project, and the capital would be reserved for future board use to do public elements in our Phase 2 of the project, complete a build-out of the event center. We currently have some vacant space both on the second floor overlooking the Intercoastal and on the first floor adjacent to our current tenant, Rafiki Tiki. And in addition, we would reserve dollars for a citywide parking initiative, a city parking enterprise that we would participate in to bring parking not only to the marina, but also to Singer Island. The CRA has also reserved dollars for our P3 partnership with Tony Sub's Restaurant. This is a CRA board-approved project that would bring a new Tony Sub's Restaurant and commercial development to Blue Heron Boulevard. The project was approved previously, but it's now been submitted to the Development Services Department of the city, and we're expecting it to go before Planning and Zoning, and then again before you when you sit as a city council for development approval this fall. Our neighborhood improvement programs will also include up to 100 new safety kit installations in our neighborhoods this year. This would enhance our local homeowners, including a Ring Wi-Fi doorbell system, smart water kits, smoke detectors, new addressing numbers for our properties, and it will include new neighborhood, yard, and homeowner signage supporting the program and announcing our new safety initiative. And finally, we're proposing our signature events for this year. This would include 3 large festivals, which will be brought back before the board for your approval. The proposal for the large festivals is to advertise this opportunity and to try and get quality proposals from companies who would be trying to bring events to make the city a destination, make a profit to support our other local events, and provide great entertainment options for our residents. This also includes partnering with the city to support some of their larger events, including the 4th of July, Martin Luther King Jr. celebrations, and continuing the CRA's very successful Winter Wonderland community holiday event, which had over 2,000 residents attend last year. The CRA looks forward to implementing our ambitious slate of new and continuing projects this year, and I think that as we update our CRA plan through workshops and stakeholder meetings in the next several months, that we'll be able to set a new course, an updated one for this board that would serve for the next 10 years and support the overall city's vision for 2030. Thank you.
Do we have any public comment cards?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, comments from the board?
Madam Chair, I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
ask a question about the Vision 2030. You're bringing in some other agency, Treasure Coast, to do that with you, or are you gonna keep the, Leah Gaines, the one who was working with the city before?
Yeah, what Treasure Coast is brought in to create the update for the CRA plan. But I think the timing is really well, because since the city's moving forward with their 2030 initiative, we would try and coordinate the CRA plan and the projects that we're going to do to fit within the overall city's new vision to bring change citywide.
So you're gonna bring Treasure Coast in?
Yes, to prepare a list of updates, proposed redevelopment projects, updated capital plan. But I just wanted to mention the city's 2030 plan, because I think that whatever the CRA does, it's important that it fits into the overall vision for the city.
And another question was, back to the budget, I think we asked at one of the previous meetings about the administrative and operations costs, which is about $1 million, and you were supposed to break that out for us.
Pull your microphone down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, we sent, in addition to this complete budget, which has all of our costs in all of our departments, we also emailed additional details from all of our budget workshops. That included all of the various costs, the detailed costs, for example, for Marina Village, for administrative salaries.
No, I
for our
haven't seen
events.
anything that has a list of all the administrative salaries.
Yes, it was emailed out, I want to say, probably about 10 days ago to each commissioner.
Have you guys seen that?
From your email, Scott, or from?
Yes, it came from my email.
It came from who? I have not seen that, because I wanted to have a list out of, it's almost $1 million in this admin and operations costs, and I wanted a breakdown of that before I move forward. And if you can tell us when you said 10 days ago, but I don't see anything in my email for that.
It's from the 20th, I think,
Was that the date that was sent
administration
out on?
salaries,
Yes.
on the 20th. Well, let me see some. Well, you know what? I only see it to me. I don't,
Yes, we sent it out to each
Individually?
individual board member. yes.
okay. It was for mine, it was September 20th at 3:44.
Yes, that could have been the date. We were working on putting together we went through all of the budget workshops to identify all of the questions that were asked, and then we put together all of those detailed lists.
And there were 5 attachments. Do you want me to read out the,
I think I have it.
It was called administration salaries.
agenda review
Oh, wait.
was the subject?
Okay.
Oh, I see that.
Yes, I see it now.
Okay. So while Ms. Lanier is looking at that, does anyone else have any questions or comments regarding this item?
Excuse me, Madam.
Go
So
ahead.
I wanted to see if we could pull some of those items related to neighborhood services from the agenda. Well, I'm sorry, not from the agenda, from the budget,
Okay,
which I thought was excessive. I know we spoke initially, particularly to some of the signature events and the vibes, the movie deal. I attended and I didn't think that was as fruitful and productive. So I personally don't care to see it in the budget. And I think I expressed with Mr. Evans, Scott Evans, that is, that I didn't think that that was the best use at this point.
okay, so which ones exactly?
Well, we don't have, so I'm looking at the 42-page budget. Is that what you have?
Yes, and if you, if I may, Madam Chair, if you reference the movie Vibes series, that is in the packet of our signature events. And we're proposing three movie nights. One to do The Lion King, which we had hoped to do coming up at the end of October. The second one would be the Toy Story item. And then the third one would be a comedy show which we would sort of try and create an improv atmosphere. If the board would like, we could put this project on hold and bring it back to you for further approval. We could also, as a proposed option, proceed with the Lion King one. We did create a little bit of marketing in advance of that, which we've provided on the dais tonight. And then we could wait and evaluate the success of that, and then come back to you and request the board approve it if we proceeded with any more in the Vibe series.
I could support that. I do see the flyer sitting up here. Instead of scrapping all three, I could support the Lion King one for now and then reassess it later for the others if you're looking to. Is there another area you're looking at too, Mr. McCoy?
Well, I have some questions in some other areas, but
All right, so let's sort through this with everybody. Anyone else want to weigh in on this section?
So which ones you're gonna pull?
He's talking about the Vibes series. There are 3 movie nights, well, 2 movie nights and 1 comedy show. And Mr. Evans proposed moving forward with the Lion King movie night one since some advertisement has already happened. And then we can assess the success of that and then add it or keep it off of the plans to continue to move forward.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I like that idea that we can see how this one works, and then if that's a success, we can move forward.
Anyone else?
I could agree with that.
Mr. Lawson?
I'm in agreement with that, Madam Chair.
All right, so Mr. McCoy, and Mr. Evans, for this section, the Vibe series, Lion King will move forward with as planned, and the other 2 we will place on hold.
Okay.
All right, Mr. McCoy?
yes, so the other item was the 50 Shades of Pink, and the balance on that came back this time around was the contribution of $3,000. Who's that sponsor, Mr. Evans? Do we know?
Certainly. Keandra, can you come up and provide that information?
And while she's coming, Madam Chair, it's ironic because it's so weird because I think I got an email last week from somebody that's doing a breast cancer awareness event, and they were asking for our support. And then, and I was wondering, I'm like, so it's almost like we duplicate, some of the same events. Now, certainly, I very much support the Friday, October 11th, naming the hall after Darlene Hatcher, but the event that we have proposed for the 10th, I was a little unsure about that one, so.
And just to add, so the 10th is a session spreading awareness of breast cancer and having attendees paint a rock in order to commemorate someone they've lost. This is part of a 3-day event, though, so we could easily cancel the Thursday portion of that. We could just have the reception on the 11th as planned, and then possibly proceed with the Saturday brunch if you so chose, or we could cancel that portion also, depending on the board's decision.
All right, Ms. Keandra?
Hi. So for the sponsor portion, to answer that question, the CDC will be sponsoring Thursday night, the paint night, as well as some of the expenses for Friday and Saturday. And we also have different sponsorships with local banks, as well as different breast cancer organizations in the city.
And that makes up the $3,000 sponsor line item.
Yes, that's correct.
Mr. McCoy?
So the only event that we're actually spending money on is the Friday night as well as Saturday. The Thursday is completely sponsored.
Okay. Well, if the Thursday is completely sponsored, then I think that kind of resolves it, right? Okay. But the other confusing part is now that I was looking on, and this kind of gets out of the whole signature events, but there is an item that money that's coming to the CDC from CRA, such as TIF and BB&T proceeds? So we're giving the CDC dollars, or we're co-sponsoring events for the CDC? Is that how I understand it?
I believe that they were sponsoring due to the relationship of the event to Darlene Hatcher. But so the CRA does support the CDC, and the primary support is in administrative costs. The executive director of the CRA, of course, is of the CDC rather, is Anita Jenkins, and the CRA pays her salary so she can provide that service in kind. And that's the primary. We also support some of their administrative costs, but not the sponsorship. That would come from other dollars that the CDC raises. And if it is your determination to reduce the cost of this particular event, then the Saturday cost portion of the event would be the one where we could reduce the cost if you wanted.
Well, I think it's nominal, but my question is, on page 27 of the budget, CDC support services. And I think it speaks to the $2.7 million.
Yes. These, the 350,000 rather. So in the past, this has been used for some property acquisition, that if it's in the CRA. We also, Anita, if you want to describe the detail for that 350,000.
As Mr. Evans said, it covers some administrative services, office supplies, insurance, professional services for legal, auditing, accounting, IT services, administrative support for salaries, et cetera. And there is a small portion that's used for some property acquisition or maintenance of properties within the CRA. But the CDC does raise unrestricted other dollars. And we have in the past realized some fee income from development.
And Mr. McCoy?
Okay. If I can move on to, I guess, the next signature event that stood out to me, the Love is in the Bloom event for $12,000.
Okay.
What do we have? I mean, that's, it's pretty simple. It's a one-pager, $12,000. Is that something that we're gonna look to continue to do?
Yes, I think it's I want to say our third or fourth year. And the idea of this event is really to highlight our community garden. A lot of it helps get all of the local residents to come out, participate, to view the garden. Sometimes we have, when we have a big event, we get some interest in the garden, we get some volunteers, and they come and participate, and then over time it tends to decrease. So we try to have events once in a while in the community garden for the community, with the primary purpose being to expose them to the garden so they understand that it's there. And it's also a place that we can rent to try and generate some revenue. So it also helps let people know that it's there, and it's a resource that's available to our residents.
Okay. Well, to that point, so another location within the budget, I seen that it was $150,000 for the community garden. What is that? Is that the expenses to run the community garden? Is that
Yes.
staff person?
That includes staffing. We have 2 community gardeners, and it's the expenses to run the gardens. Yes, sir.
They're not employees, right?
We have one employee who is, he's one of our clean and safe officers, and he went through the program to become a community, a master gardener rather, through FAU, I believe. So we do pay him to help with our garden, and then we have another contract employee who we pay on a regular basis to maintain the 10th Street garden.
So the 150 is just the salaries of that one clean and safe person, and then also, I guess, operating expenses?
It's costs, utilities, soil, planting, Small, if we do an event at the garden, like last year, we did several children's events where we gave out pumpkins and got some school children to come down. It also supports the expansion of our satellite gardens. Anita, you might want to talk about a couple of the satellite gardens that we've done.
The community garden on 10th Street is our main demonstration garden, and a good portion of the $140,000 proposed budget covers that. It covers a professional gardener who's there virtually 7 days a week, and a portion of the master gardener / ambassador salary. It also includes minimal office type expenses, minimal promo expenses and meetings. It covers the rent and lease expense. Under our lease agreement for that space, we pay the property tax bill, which is less than $1,000 a year. But a big chunk of dollars also goes to the city for utilities, and we pay FP&L. It covers supplies in terms of seed and mulch and gravel, et cetera, and repairs and maintenance for the upkeep to make sure that the investment is maintained. We have a relationship with the Riviera Beach Resource Center, the small children's garden on 6th Street, and the professional gardener and the ambassador goes over and provides some technical assistance. And once a year, we give a small grant, around $250 for seeds and things. We also have provided some technical assistance for the development of a garden that's being developed on Singer Island. And the gardeners also provide some support for the garden at the Boys and Girls Club. We have some residents who develop backyard gardens, so it covers those things as well. And we have a number of events throughout the year in partnership with the police department, with other agencies, Healthier Riviera Beach, where they may have reading events and just the supplies for that. Our neighborhood event we had was in the garden. So out of this budget, we cover the expenses for those things. But it's been a great community building type of program, and I think people love coming there. A number of our seniors from Southside Coalition come over for sessions, and we have seniors who are at Lindsay Davis who come over from time to time, but also our children.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Certainly don't doubt it. Again, I know these programs have a great benefit, but, I'm having heartburn because, the focus seems to be more neighborhood driven in social programs as opposed to community redevelopment. Now, arguably, community redevelopment is pretty broad, and I guess you can suggest that providing community gardens across the city, in some cases, not even in the CRA, is a little bit outside of the scope. And Mr. Haygood, I know we've had conversations about this, but it appears that, at least for me, I don't even know that, for some of these things like the CDC, which is a completely separate organization, how is it that we're finding ourselves involved in more things that operate outside of the boundaries and the confines of the CRA
Well,
boundaries?
yeah, we have stressed that the CDC funding from the CRA could only be used for projects within the CRA. So if there are any projects that are being done by the CDC outside of the CRA, they aren't using CRA funds.
Right, but I think how I arrived at this conversation was the community gardening, and then she expressed some things about the garden that's on Singer Island, which I'm sure is not in the CRA.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
So
it's-
what about, you spoke of the south side?
The residents from the south side, which a portion is in the CRA boundaries, participate in the program. Part of Riviera Beach Heights is outside of the CRA, But the organization, they actually meet within the CRA. A number of those residents live within the CRA boundaries, and the organization, Southside Coalition, they come over from time to time.
Okay,
So it's all within the CRA.
okay. That's it on the community garden, Madam Chair, but I do want to reserve for some other items in the budget.
Okay. Ms. Lanier?
I was gonna speak to the community gardens. In fact, I would like that program to be expanded. I think that we need to look at sustainability in neighborhoods and communities, having people grow their own food, having people to be able to know how to garden and how to grow their own food. So if anything, I would definitely want this program to be expanded.
All right, I have a question about the Love and Bloom. So, well, not just for that one, a few of the others talked about maybe asking for some of these, to be a chargeable event. Did you all decide which ones were going to be that?
Yes, yeah, we have a list of the ones that we think we can generate revenue. Keandra, if you just want to go through some of the revenue you identified.
Okay, so for the signature events, one of the events that had a charge was the Vibe series. We will be having kid packages for each movie event where they will have an option to buy, for $5, they can get an autographed book with the soda, because we'll also have the characters coming out, so they'll take pictures with the different characters, and to get the characters autographed with a nice autograph book, lunch, and a water or soda. So the tickets for the kid-friendly movie showings were $5. There is also a charge for the comedy show, which we're expecting 60 general admission seats, which ticket sales will be $600 for that. Premier seating, 40 of those seats at $800, and then 24 VIP seats at $720. So that's the revenue for those, which are also shown on the page as well. Brunch on the Riviera is also a charged event. We have not decided a cost as of yet, but we are looking at $35 per person, and that's to cover the expenses of food as well as the paint and instructor. Love is in Bloom is still in the early planning stages, so I know that we are discussing possibly having a charge for this event, but with it being a free event in the past, we're gonna definitely try to keep it as low charge as possible. And then
With this
sorry.
particular one, do we verify that they're Riviera Beach residents only, or this is open to anyone for free?
For which event, I'm sorry?
The Love is in Bloom.
It's open to anyone in the public.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, and then of course there'll be a charge for the large festivals, which we're looking at having a Taste of Jazz and R&B and a Under the Sea Food Festival.
So I know with some of these events, well, most of them, they're getting food and drink pretty much for free. And I think with the senior prom that the city hosts each year, they had to really crack down on making sure that these were Riviera Beach residents that were being provided this for free. So I personally think that we need to make sure that if we're putting this kind of money into these events, it is for Riviera Beach residents. And I mean, we can't go to West Palm or somewhere else, and if it's something for the residents, they're gonna charge us. So, I don't know how my colleagues feel about that, but if we're sitting here concerned about the amount of money that we're spending, I mean, we gotta understand too, the amount that we're spending is not necessarily going towards all just residents. So is that a concern for anyone, or everybody's good with that, with all of these?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
I guess my concern is that my priority with the CRA is redevelopment projects and transforming that Broadway corridor. The events are great, but if I go to page 38, I'm seeing that our total cost, marina cost, is costing us a net cost of $1.8 million to operate. So right now, what I'm seeing is that we're focused more so on the events where I want to see development. I want us to have more discussions about the development because this cost of these events and social engagement, which I'm an advocate for, is still just continuing to cost our residents money every year. So right now, I'm looking for different projects to get accomplished and done and break some ground, like our utility burial project. I want to see that that's done. I want to see that we get that moving and get that going. That's been on the budget, because I actually reviewed the last couple budgets, and that's been on the budget for a few years. So, Mr. Evans, if you give us an update on what's going on, why it's taking on so long for that utility burial project.
Certainly. The utility burial project is on hold until we have the correct easements in order to bury the power lines. And that has been an ongoing delay. The main easement, the largest easement that we were short in order to implement the project was actually at the corner of 27th Street and Broadway. And that's on the site of the building that we have recently purchased. So that solved perhaps the biggest easement that we were needing. The other easements are located on Viking-owned property along Broadway between Blue Heron Boulevard and 11th Street. And as a component of a board-approved property swap agreement, Viking has agreed to provide the CRA all of the remaining easements that are needed in order to move forward with the project. And that agreement will not trigger until the old 13th Street is abandoned. So following abandonment of Old 13th Street, Viking will provide the CRA through our approved agreement all of the easements that are holding up the utility burial project. And the progress of that is it was approved by the Planning and Zoning Board earlier this month, and that's proposed to come before City Council in October, November, depending on the scheduling of development services.
Okay, I want this to be our priority, and I want to put some urgency on all of our development within our corridors, in our CRA district. I'd prefer to see a lot of our events and coordinating and the social engagement put out for RFP so that we could actually bring outside organizations, entities, and promoters to possibly facilitate these to keep our costs at a minimum for the events, and our priority and focus exclusively be on the development of the corridor. What I want to see is quarterly updates from from Mr. Evans, just to kind of give us an idea of what's going on with these capital projects. Because right now, through the end of the year, I don't see anything being accomplished in our CRA district except for a few events. So I really want to see us actually get something done in the next coming months. So possibly starting in November, if we could have some capital project updates, that would kind of help us to move forward.
Okay.
So with that being said, with these projects, social projects, are you wanting to continue to move forward with them, or some you want to place on hold? I noticed your conversation was more on development.
Yeah, I'm good with seeing what we do with the Lion King and the event that we have there, and then possibly revisiting. I don't want us to delay the budget and go back to square one, but I'd love to, before we do anything else or have any more flyers on our desk, determine what we're going to do with those funds by having this event, allowing for them to do it, but then looking at other options to have other possible promoters, advisors, marketing reps. People can come in and actually host or co-host these events with the city to keep our costs down.
So, but go ahead, you're looking to go ahead and move forward with it being in the budget?
I'm okay with it being in the budget because we can reallocate or just not have those funded or have these events funded. Before they actually fund these events, I'd like that to come back before the board so we can have those discussions.
Okay, we can do that. We can, we've gotten clear direction on the Vibe series, and what we can do for our other signature events is schedule them for review at our CRA board meetings before we proceed with any of them. The one major event that does require a lot of planning is, of course, our Winter Wonderland event, where we had over 2,000 residents. So I would request that we would be happy to provide the board an update on those, but if we could begin planning and implementing and deposits for that large event, since it's coming up in early December, if we could include the authority to proceed with planning that, as well as the Lion King event, then we could bring the other signature events back to the board at a future CRA meeting before we begin.
But the one for the breast cancer, that was in October, so what do you all want them to do with that one? Go ahead and proceed, you're good with those?
Well, I do have one question. Do we know when our city's trunk or treat event is? Because I know, if I'm not mistaken, isn't the weekend prior to Halloween?
Is what weekend?
Or is it during the week? Trunk or treat.
I'm not sure.
October 26th.
That's not gonna work.
Well, it's not gonna work. What are you talking about?
That's what we have Lion King, so,
Our Lion King movie will be a matinee, so it's from 11 a.m. till 2, so the kids will still have time to go to the trunk or treat that evening.
They already thought about that. They see that?
yeah, but, you know, it's not so much of being able to go, you know, schedule-wise, but it seems that every day, I mean, so for instance, it's a strain on the overall resources of the city. That's the first thing. And clearly, there's no coordination. I mean, to have two agencies that are the same agency, essentially, having events on the same day, you know, that's my apprehensions with some of these social events, because, you know, we're just doing things just because it sounds good to do, but, you know, if the city's police department and Parks and Rec are coordinating an event on the same day, you know, how likely is someone going to be able to, you know, go to both events? I mean, it's possible, but, you know, I don't want to have an event where, like I've seen in the past, where we showed up and there was a handful of people there and there was more staff participating than it was for.
Well, I think we kind of put some safeguards in place by just doing the Lion King one first, and then we'll assess that and before we move on to any others. But the one for breast cancer, I do think we need to say yay or nay for that one, because that's in a couple weeks or so.
But they have sponsorship, so I'm okay with
So
that.
you're good with the breast cancer one? Okay, so that one, the Lion King, and the Winter Wonderland are good to go, right?
And Madam Chair, one more thing too. I'd also like to, in terms of Councilman Lawson talking about outside sponsorship for these events, I also see that the city should be helping to sponsor some of these, because it is one agency and everybody can get credit for it. That means that the city gets credit for it, the CRA gets credit for it, it's jointly staffed, it's jointly funded, so that it is something that we all can participate in.
All right.
I do see this as one agency.
Okay. Dr. Patel?
Yes, thank you. I just want to be sure that the infrastructure grant we discussed when we met and reviewed all of the budget items has been added.
For
You and
the
I-
Singer
you and I
Island
met-
parking proposal, is that the?
Or the, yes,
Yes, that's included in our capital budget.
okay, thank you.
All right,
Question,
go ahead.
so to her point, is that in that carryover dollars that I asked about?
It's in the capital portion of the budget, which is on the last, let's see, it's page 41. Riviera Beach Parking Enterprise and Singer Island Parking, which provides a budget for pursuing parking garages, parking facilities within the city, both on Singer Island and at the Marina Village.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, give me just 1 second. I'm trying to go through some notes here.
And each step of our our capital project budget, of course, comes before this board, both for procurement, contract selection, bidding. So the board gets to see all of these projects multiple times.
So why are we budgeting for the event center build-out as opposed to the CDE?
So the event center build-out, this is for, to complete the event center. Currently, we have approximately 3,700 square feet on the ground floor, which faces the waterfront. That's unbuilt. And then additionally, we have about 5,000 square feet, mostly outdoor space, which is on the second floor, and that's facing the intercoastal. And two of these lease spaces, they've been awaiting for us to proceed with Marina Phase 2, but we are reserving these dollars so that we can contribute to the build-out when we attract a tenant to build out those spaces. The build-out, of course, will cost over $1 million, but these are some contributions that we're holding, and that will help us negotiate in the future. If the board elects not to give whatever portion of the dollars you elect to do in a lease to a new future tenant, that would still come before you for consideration, but we're reserving these build-out dollars as a normal commercial project would do for any new development.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
Why not the CDE dollars, Mr. Evans?
So the CDE does accumulate some money. We have not brought it back to this board for expenditure, but we're reserving those dollars potentially for when we do redevelop Marina Phase 2 for small business development has been the previous thought that we would propose to use those funds. The CDE is, of course, a separate entity, which I am by board appointment the president of. Any expenditure of those dollars I would bring before this board for approval, and they are available when the board decides to move forward with Phase 2.
Madam Chair?
Are you finished, Mr. McCoy?
Yes, reserve for follow-up later.
Go ahead, Mr.
Mr.
Lawson.
Evans, the CDE, can you, how much money is in the CDE account and what is the purpose? If you could give us a quick overview of the CDE?
Yeah, the CDE was created when the CRA constructed the event center. We were able to take advantage of New Markets tax credits, not our own New Markets tax credits, but those that were obtained by another agency. And they had space availability in their pipeline to accommodate a new project, so they added us. And this would have been in 2013, 2014 timeframe. As a requirement of participating in that program, you had to create the CDE, which was a conduit for the tax credit program. And the CDE is designed to accumulate some money during the length of it. The New Markets tax credit program is, as it's implemented, over 7 years, and then after that, the building will actually be given to the city, who leased the land to them originally. And those CDE dollars will be available for small business development, and I'll bring that back before the board when we proceed with Marina Phase 2. Currently, we've accumulated approximately $700,000, but almost $400,000 of that is reserved as a debt owed to the CRA. So before we proceed with that, as a part of the construction, that debt would need to be paid. But over the life of the CDE, it will continue to accumulate dollars, and those funds I'll bring back to you to direct me on how to spend them when we proceed with Phase 2.
And just one more follow-up, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
2600 Broadway project. I see that a majority of the funds have been allocated for 2020, 2021. What is our outcome for this coming year for the Broadway project?
So our next step on the Broadway project will be based on the positive board approval at our last meeting or board reception of our concept. So now we've directed the architects and engineers to begin the detailed design plans, and those will be submitted to Development Services. And then that will go to the city's Planning and Zoning Board, and then we'll come before you as a city council for approval. Once we've gained that approval, we'll complete the construction documents, put those out for bid, and then once we have a bid for that, we'll bring that construction contract back before the CRA board for approval. So those are sort of the steps that we have in the coming year.
So we're not expecting to see any construction for about a year on that project?
Yeah, yes, correct.
Mr. McCoy?
Yes, page 41 of the budget, BB&T 2018 loan, $6.1 million. What projects are we funding from that loan?
That loan funds the 2600 project. It additionally provides $1 million for affordable housing, which we've included into the reclaim.
I'm sorry, can you slow down? You
I'm
said
sorry, sure.
$1 million for reclaim?
Yes, for affordable housing.
Now, so is that $1 million for the reclaim, is that total amount going to be put forth in the 2020 budget? Because I've seen reclaim earlier in here for, it's a lot of jumping back.
Yes,
$1.1 million, so is the whole $1 million going toward 2020?
Yes, we're proposing to spend it this year.
Okay, all right, so that's the second. I think that puts us up to $3.2 and $1 million, that's 4.2, so what else do we have?
We also have the Avenue E Streetscape project, which is $2 million.
And was that for the streetscape, that was just for the design, right? That's not for actual,
Those dollars are reserved for capital improvements primarily. So the Avenue E corridor requires multiple improvements. We'd like to do decorative lighting, new sidewalks. We believe the roadway needs to be redone at the same time. And potentially, we're investigating if the utility district needs to make improvements underneath the roadway too. So that's a future combined project between the city and the CRA. The CRA has committed $2 million towards that project. If the city elects not to make any other improvements, then we will bring forward the capital plan to expend that $2 million on the streetscape, on decorative lighting, implementation of sidewalks, and bicycle lanes. And we're currently doing a study of that corridor to identify all the costs for all of those different items that could be replaced, from a new roadway to expanded improved utilities underneath the roadway and the decorative lighting enhancements. So that complete plan will identify all the different costs, and it will also identify how we propose to spend the $2 million should the city not participate in the rest of the project.
okay, thank you. That's it for that item. I do have another question related to some Marina Village expenses.
Go ahead.
So page 38, the Marina Uplands, $714,000. Why is not some, if not all, of those expenses not charged to the city?
The CRA has maintained the Marina Village property on behalf of the city. When we undertook the original redevelopment initiative, we undertook maintaining and developing Marina Village. Of course, we managed the implementation and construction of all of the Phase 1 improvements. The city was certainly our partner in that, but we continue to maintain Marina Village and look after it as we pursue Phase 2 on behalf of the city.
And can you speak to the CRA Event Center rent debt, 320? I don't understand what that means.
As in order to fund construction of the Marina Event Center, the way that the finances were set up is we created a rent payment that the CRA would pay to the CDE to essentially rent the facility from that paper organization. It was required by the new market tax credit arrangement, and essentially what it does is creates a positive cash flow for the CDE. So the CDE has to make a debt payment on the new market tax credit program on the cost of the building, and in order to cover they don't have any revenue. So in order to cover the debt payment that they're required to make, the CRA makes a rent payment, which is really just a capital payment on the building, the cost of the building, to the CDE, who then take those dollars and make the payment in accordance with the new market tax credit arrangement. And that's actually how the CDE accumulates a small portion of money, because there's a difference between the rent payment and the debt payment, a small portion each year, so it accumulates that. And that's so that it's an income positive entity.
So is that the 700 some odd $1,000 that you say we have on hand at CDE?
Yes, sir.
Is that audited a part of our,
Yes, in order to simplify our audits, what we did was the auditor who audits all of the CRA, we include the audit for the CDE also by the same auditor, so he can understand all of the capital flows and inflows related to the CRA.
and that CDE only expenses would be the rent payments, right?
They have a few minor administrative costs, but the main bulk is just that debt payment for the event center.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Mr. Evans, the event center, that costs, what page is the allocation of that? Okay, I found it, page 39. When does the event center, when is it actually scheduled to go back over to the city?
It's 7 years following completion of the project, which is 2022, 2023, in that timeframe.
And then at 2022, at that time, do we have a direction as to what the CRA is looking to do for 2022 with the event center?
Yes, ideally by then we'll have implemented a development agreement for the Marina Phase 2 project. And that development agreement would, of course, include both the City of Riviera Beach and the CRA by requirement, since the city owns the properties. And so that the event center, of course, would be included in that agreement, since it would be changing hands following the 7-year timeframe.
Yeah,
And
and the transfer back to the city really has no, necessarily, is not necessarily controlled by the development agreement.
Microphone.
That will happen on it. Okay, that's better, sorry. So the way the New Markets Tax Credit transaction was structured, there's a 7-year compliance period, and at the end of that 7 years, there will be a twinkling of the eye. The property will then be transferred back to the city for no debt. It'd be like $1. But you had to, the CDE had to maintain it for those 7 years.
So the debt after that 7-year will be paid off? That is
Yes.
being currently transferred over to the CDE?
To the city.
I'm sorry, the money that, I see that the CRA is transferring an event center debt to the CDE of $320,000. So that debt will be
That's
paid
a
off
pa-
once
yeah.
transferred to the city, so it'll be debt-free.
Yes, it'd be debt-free.
Okay. In addition to that, the CDE, Mr. Evans, you said has 700,000 in there. And is there a certain amount that is required to be kept in that CDE to continue this debt transfer that we have? Is there a minimum amount?
Well, it's cash flow positive each year, so we wouldn't expend the money from that particular year.
Of course.
But the available funds that it's accumulated would be available for small business development, or perhaps something related to that, as long as we follow the rules for the entity that's created by the.
I'm not sure, but I think there was actually, and Scott can correct me, there's an agreement that the CDE will pay certain funds back to the CRA?
Yes, I did reference that earlier, that the CDE loan, the CRA loaned the CDE some dollars that would need to be paid back before and we're reserving those.
Right.
Okay, because we have $750,000 sitting over there and I know that there's a debt of 400,000 that's back owed to the CRA, so some type of programming or something with that CDE money just needs to be implemented as opposed to just sitting there as a kiddie. It makes no sense to just have it sitting there unless there's a requirement for it to be holding a certain balance once we're transferring them. I'm not sure why.
Not that I'm aware of. Our intention was to have it be used to promote the integration of small business into the next phase of the marina.
Okay. So we're waiting on phase 2 for us to utilize the CDE funds.
As of right now, yes, sir.
Question. So, I know you mentioned to me today, Mr. Evans, that the CRA just began its most recent business certification readiness training.
Yes, sir.
So, do we know, or can someone tell us how many people have, I guess, initially started?
Yes. Anita, can you provide an update?
We had, as of yesterday morning, we had 95 people to register. The first class was last night, and we had 45 attendees. So it was a quite robust class.
Do we know how many are Riviera Beach?
I have not seen the demographic sheets. They were collected. I'll be able to tell you by next week. I'll get a report, and I can tell you that. But it's marketed for those who are Riviera Beach residents who own a business or who are interested in starting a business in the city.
Okay, obviously I wouldn't know, I think I was in the first class, but, if they're getting the training and going somewhere else, I don't think that's a good use of city dollars. So I wanna know, and I'm not suggesting that we turn people away at this point if they've already registered, but, I don't see the benefit for the CRA or the community as a whole if we don't even know where they are. So that's just, I guess, going forward, something that I would be concerned with, especially if we're, turning back the programs or other programs because we don't think it's fruitful. I certainly want to see that that's a part of the conversation going forward, Mr. Evans, to find out, are these people who are participating business owners, residents, or that sort of thing. But I don't want to, change anything now, but that took me to the next point of the creativity stations. What happened with that? Is that still a part of it, or did we?
Creativity Station it's a CDC program with other partners. It's not included in the CRA program. The support that comes from the CRA is to provide occasional space.
Okay, but why would we put that in our budget?
It's not in the budget.
Well,
Our narrative just describes the partnerships, I'm sorry.
We were just talking about partnerships.
surely you would see how that could be confusing though, right?
Yes, we can amend that to more clearly show that it's clearly we're just describing the partnerships, of course. By paying the salary of Ms. Jenkins, that allows us to, strongly support the CDC and allow them to be very successful without a lot of overhead costs. But we can modify the budget to reduce any language that's confusing related to those partnerships.
Not only is it confusing, it's overkill. While I think the CRA does have some strategic partnerships, but this is a part of the 2019 budget and work plan where we identify the agency's revenues and highlight our expenses. But there's a number of pages that speaks to partnerships, and one would believe that this is something that the CRA is expending, and I've been flipping back to try to figure out if there was more information on it. But yeah, if it doesn't amount to dollars and cents, I think it's more of a programming thing and not something that I would like to see in a budget document.
Okay.
And Mr. Evans, was there a increase in the clean and safe across the board that we initially suggested as far as salaries?
Yes, we have implemented, based on the budget workshop, a $1.50 per hour raise across the board for all of our clean and safe employees. And part of the conversation was that the starting salaries of $10 an hour and $12 an hour was not providing a livable wage. So this budget includes a $1.50 an hour raise for all of our clean and safe employees.
Thank you. I know certainly I think that's fair. So that's all I have on the budget.
All right. Did I ask if we had public comment cards? We don't. Okay.
One last thing. So what did we decide about the brunch? Did we?
We said we were gonna, that's the 3 days. You're talking about the brunch on the Riviera or the one for the breast cancer?
No, the brunch with the painting. I think it's four
That's
events.
the 3 for the breast cancer.
No.
The painting.
Oh,
Painting with a twist, because I know we discussed it, but I don't know where we ended up
well,
at.
the first day is the painting
It's-
of the rock.
No. This one is on the 7 of the signature events.
Okay, I don't know.
So January, February, March, April, and May.
Well, that wasn't one of the ones we decided. They're gonna bring that back to us before they do any of that other stuff.
Yes, the brunch on the Riviera, that is a revenue-based, but we will bring that back to you before we proceed.
So we're gonna approve the budget tonight and then
With
obviously.
the direction not to proceed with only the signature events for Winter Wonderland, breast cancer awareness, and the Family Lion King movie. And all other events will be brought back to you for your consideration before we proceed.
That's what they said, too.
Okay.
All right, anyone else? All right, Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
for the purposes of the motion, you are not changing anything. Are you changing anything in the budget as submitted to you?
I'll amend the motion if need be to reflect the fact that we will have board decision on some of the items that are included in the budget as they come up.
So the budget is being approved as
Budget
submitted?
will be approved as submitted with the understanding that we have, that we'll have board approval on certain items as they come up.
That's good. There's your second, Stan?
I think I seconded, but
Who was the second, Miss?
It was Commissioner Lawson.
Yes.
Is that good?
Second.
Okay. You had a question or comment?
that's just not how I understood it. So,
Not how you understood what?
right, so looking at the signature events, are we just gonna leave those items, Mr. Evans, as budgeted for? And then from an operational management standpoint, then we decide whether we're going forward?
That was my proposal.
Okay, all right, there you go. So we'll vote as presented.
As she just amended. Okay.
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Botel,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries as amended.
No items tabled. Public comment. Public comment should be restricted to issues, matters, or topics pertinent to the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency. Please be reminded that the CRA Board of Commissioners has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which has been posted at the entrance of the council chambers. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, the commission chair may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting and/or building if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Do we have public comment?
We have one public comment card, Ms. Doretta Polk.
All right. Yeah, the time clock.
I have it up.
No, I haven't saw it yet. You wanna put it back on 3? Thank you. I appreciate
All
that.
right, you can see it,
Good-
Ms. Polk?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, Board. My name is Doretta Park, and I have a couple of issues that I want to talk about concerning the lighting, Mr. Evans. There's a new light that's put on 22nd, and you know our light is for our community is on 20th, the street I live on. And I was just wondering now, when you activate that light on 22nd, I know you said that you will leave our light on 20th, but hopefully it will not be a flashing yellow light because we will not be able to get out. I hope it remains red, yellow, and green for the safety of our community. We have senior citizens that live in La Villa, Franciscan, the 3-story senior citizen building, and it's detrimental that we be able to get out safely because there was going to be a lot of accidents and could be fatal accidents because we will not, the way that traffic go, we will not be able to get out. So hopefully it remains on the 20th, which you said it would, but hopefully the light situation will be red, yellow, and green. And then another thing I want to talk about, I had a meeting scheduled with Mrs. Anita Jenkins on yesterday. I was quite disappointed because I had my meeting set up for over a week and a half. I was called by Mr. Merrill, which she was very gracious and apologetic, and saying at 11, it must have been like 11:10 or 11:13, and my appointment was at 11:30. I had my keys, my purse, and I was ready to come for my meeting. And she said, unfortunately, she would not be able to meet with me because she had another meeting that she had to attend to. And I told Mr. Mara, my meeting was set up for 11:30. And I just didn't think that was very professional. I think that was disrespectful. I have never been rude to her or disrespectful to her. And Mr. Merrill did say that she would go ahead and set up another meeting, but I really wanted to talk, and I told her I would get a hold of Ms. Jenkins myself, and we would talk. But, you know, it's concerning my house me having assistance in my house being painted. My meeting was canceled before, and now this. And I just didn't think that was right for any citizen of Riviera Beach to be treated in this way. So I thank you for the opportunity for me to speak on this, but I will be able to try to get my house painted on my own. But I just want to definitely concerning that light, definitely. And about the love blooms in the garden, that is a very valuable program that you have. The citizen comes out to that. And also the children in the garden. But I thank you
Ms.
very
Clark.
much.
Thank
If you can
you.
respond to that, especially about the lights, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Evans.
We'll make sure that we meet with Ms. Polk as soon as possible and get her an update on her questions related to FDOT's lighting plan.
All right, and I'm sure she can have a conversation with Ms. Jenkins regarding the appointment time. That's the end of public comment, correct? Ms. Tamara? That's it, right? Okay. Report of the executive director,
I have nothing further.
report of general counsel,
I have nothing this evening.
discussion of the board. We'll start with Mayor Fielder.
I have nothing.
Chair Pro Tem?
My Singer Island Quarterly Town Hall meeting will not be on the fourth Thursday of October. It will be on the fourth Tuesday. Is that third Tuesday. It'll be on the 15th and not the 17th. I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. We're starting our after-school program at JFK on October 1st. So I encourage you, if you have children in the 8th grade at JFK, to be sure that they sign up for that after-school career awareness program. We will be having Tropical Shipping as the October host, and we'll be taking children over to Tropical to see what that's like after having spent 3 sessions with workers from Tropical, telling them about what it's like to work in the field of logistics. And then we'll be having a dinner for parents on the 4th Wednesday of October for the parents to understand what the high schools have to offer in terms of logistics training. That's it.
Mr. McCoy?
Nothing.
Ms. Lanier?
I have nothing.
Mr. Lawson?
Nothing, Madam Chair.
All right, and I do not have anything for tonight. So with that being said, we stand adjourned and we'll restart 8:15.